I noticed Johnny Depp over there. It seems like we know him now. Hey, Harry, have you been in the news recently for anything? Putting cocaine in a box is not an acceptable statement to make. Yeah, it seems like it could fit some cocaine, but I don't know. When Johnny Depp was seemingly untouchable, he appeared in a comic book adaptation about the murders committed by Jack the Ripper. However, it evolved from a few different forms in the beginning. Come with us as we investigate the afterlife. Both the artwork and the narrative of Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell's graphic novel From Hell, which so deftly blends fact and fiction, are genuinely remarkable achievements. The idea of creating a fictional adaptation of the Jack the Ripper events is certainly groundbreaking. Moore speculates that the murders committed by the Ripper were driven more by political agendas and may have had ties to the royal family. Since the murders of Jack the Ripper remain a mystery, he was free to use his imagination as much as he wanted. Even more impressively, Moore took home 3 Eisner Awards: Best Writer, Best Serialized Story, and Best Graphic Album Reprint. Visualizing the comics as a film was a breeze because of their highly cinematic style. As a result, there was a lot of excitement for its eventual cinematic debut. It was actually Sean Connery who was to play Inspector Adeline, as Alan Moore had announced in an interview. Moore may have been attempting to sway the studio's decision, but in the end, this turned out not to be true. Moore probably wouldn't have approved of a film adaptation of his graphic novel starring Sean Connery because, ironically, Connery would go on to star in Moore's beloved but reviled League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. As huge From Hell fans, Alba and Alan Hughes went on to direct hit films like Dead Presidents and Menace to Society. Excitedly, they became a part of the project. They failed to secure Daniel Day-Lewis's participation despite their initial desire for him to play the lead role. The Hughes brothers met with Brad Pitt and Jude Law before deciding on Johnny Depp. Supposedly, Jack the Ripper wrote a message to the Whitechapel authorities, which is where the title From Hell originates. Spelling mistakes abound in the message, which appears to have been written by Mr. Luther. I am sending you half of a preserved kidney that I removed from a woman. I fried the other piece in aid. A pleasant experience. The blood-stained knife that dissected it might end up in your hands. Hold on for just a little bit longer. Given under my hand. Mr. Love, come get me whenever you can. Regrettably, the film opted not to attempt any of those things and instead desired to be merely a film. Regarding the case of the dying prostitutes and Johnny Depp's efforts to solve it. During the finale, there is even a ridiculous pursuit involving a carriage. I don't know what else to say except that it is distinctly early 2000s. The movie is structurally identical to the book, but the noirish tone is ruined by the MTV style. See this caravan for yourself, I mean it. A banker in Georgia was killed at some point this evening. No big deal, I don't think. The way you handled her, Inspector, was ordinary, but your performance is what truly showcases your talent. Oh my God. Very little. Put an end to it already. Oh my God. The Hughes brothers aren't to blame for the caravan, though. At times, the film's style is a bit too much to handle, but it's clear that they were trying. Not every strategy they used was one with which I could agree. The police station scenes, on the other hand, featured real photographs of Jack the Ripper's murders displayed prominently. Even worse, they did it to frighten the actors into giving more dramatic performances, because, screw using words to direct them, you gotta traumatize them first. Frederick Abbott's line has been fused with another character and is now a psychic, which is perhaps the most outrageous alteration. Yes, he is able to be because he has visions of the murders. And that's not even taking into account his lackluster investigative skills in relation to the Jack the Ripper case. Enough said. All he does is smoke a lot of opium and see visions. It's almost as if they're aiming for the most absurd level of ridiculousness possible. Additionally, there is the conspiracy that triggers everything. A member of the royal family has gotten pregnant by a local prostitute, and an undercover organization is attempting to resolve the matter. I am referring to the Freemasons when I say secret group. In this film, they do indeed appear. On top of that, we also receive a full initiation ritual. Those who enjoy the Freemasons and are open to creative license will enjoy this. One of the most infamously difficult muscles to burn is the human heart, which is dense and powerful. So William Gold, a physician to the royal family, was portrayed by Ian Holm. You can tell something is wrong the second Holm walks through the door. The audience is immediately drawn to Gold when Adeline suggests that the killer possesses surgical precision. Really, it was almost used as a weapon to beat you. Therefore, by the time the reveal occurs, it is practically anticipated. The scene where Inspector Appalachian is passed out from an opium down is where we first meet his complex character. This introduces our protagonist in quite a dramatic fashion, and makes it immediately apparent that Frederick is not without his own demons. A little bit of a hybrid of the comic book Aveline and Robert Lee's psychic persona goes into his Aveline. They may or may not have simply desired depths. Anyone's guess as to why they wanted him to take center stage, or if they simply wanted someone with supernatural abilities. The fact that he is based on a real person makes it easy to make him a psychic, though. Whores don't exist in England. What does exist is a large population of unfortunate women. The relationship between Inspector Aveline and Heather Graham's Mary Kelly, a young prostitute, has not even been discussed yet. Time is concerned that she may be next on the hit list, and she primarily acts as inspiration for Depp's character to find out who killed her. It was a bit much to expect him to carry out his duties. That additional push is exactly what he needs, and he gets it. It is not surprising that Moore has written off the picture because of how ridiculous and uneducated it is. Just how? During the initial interment of one of the victims of the Jack the Ripper, the coffin is dropped and utterly shatters, exposing the body within. It's absurd, and I still don't understand the purpose of her directing these women. Show that you're more than a little irritated by the corpse. As an annoyance of some kind. After Jack the Ripper's last murder, the crew recreated 4 blocks of Whitechapel on Tour de Prague to represent London streets. At the crime scene, a police officer gave a detailed account. Dead body rests in the center of the bed. As she passed away, her clenched fingers betrayed her struggle. The source for this information is the official report from the crime scene. When men reflect on their lives, they often say things like, "I'm going to see the 20th century from hell." Arrived in theaters on October 19, 2001, and grossed $11 million during its opening weekend in the US. The final tally for the film's global gross was $74.6 million. Rotten Tomatoes gave the film 57% of the vote despite mixed reviews. While the visuals were jaw-dropping, critics unanimously agreed that the newest Ripper story was boring and lacked any real terror. After this and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen bombed, Alan Moore threw caution to the wind and abandoned the project altogether. Because he considers his adaptations to be bastardization, Moore has rejected any and all financial compensation for them. The filmmakers obviously felt the effects of the film's release. They went 9 years without releasing a new film. The amount of studio interference discouraged them, and they come across as very angry about the end results. The property was commissioned by Fox Networks to be developed into a television series by David Arata, who had achieved tremendous success with his Children of Men adaptation. But it never materialized. Given the current fad for adapted comic books, it's surprising that someone hasn't given From Hell another go. Whatever the reason, the author's obvious dislike of his own adaptations or simply a lack of faith in the story, no studio has been able to salvage the situation. Seems captivated. So, rumors about how much Alan Moore despises this film will persist regardless of whether the story is remade. Thankfully, though, the film has its adherents. Even though the focus is more on presentation than content, you can still have a blast. So, this 2001 thriller will entertain anyone who is interested in the story of Jack the Ripper, or who is simply enamored with Johnny Depp. Try not to give it too much thought.